Hi there, everybody. Michael Valenti here with a School of Self-Defense in Indianapolis. And today I'm going to address one of the most common misconceptions held by experts in the self-defense field. And that is the idea or the principle that the vast majority of self-defense situations are going to involve you versus multiple opponents. I come to making this video because of how often I come across people who say something along the lines of, judo is really good or jujitsu is really good, but it just won't work against multiple opponents, which is why it is not viable for self-defense. However, this kind of is coming from a principle and a very narrowed view of what self-defense actually is, and the idea that most of the fights you're going to find yourself in are going to be multi-man situations is just wrong. It's empirically false. So let me first start off where that statement is true. Multi-man scenarios. Is it smart to grapple? No. You should not engage in judo, or especially shouldn't engage in like jujitsu or wrestling when there are multiple opponents. Now, a lot of people who are big into the grappling scene would say, well, you just can't really beat multiple opponents, so therefore you shouldn't even concern yourself with it. And that's a flawed way of thinking as well, because it's better to have a plan than no plan. Because if your plan is to run away from a multi-man fight, then your plan should be to run away from all fights. But at the end of the day, self-defense is a fight that you can't run away from. That's the reason why it's self-defense. If you have a chance to run away and you don't, you're no longer defending yourself. You are choosing to fight. And that's a completely different story. So I do agree that if you are in a multi-man fight, that you should avoid the grappling skills and rely more on your striking skills, such as your Kenpo, your JKD, and of course your CDS skills. However, having said that, the idea that the majority of the fights that someone could get into will involve multi-man is just wrong. It just absolutely is wrong. And it comes from a very narrowed view of what self-defense is. The people who tend to think that are picturing a street fight. They're picturing a fight outside of a bar, in a back alley, at a bus stop, being assaulted by a group of gang members. That's what they're picturing. And those things do happen. However, those kind of assaults only make up about 10% of the total self-defense situations that people find themselves in. The vast majority of self-defense situations are going to involve you being attacked by someone you know well in a place that you are comfortable. Let me elaborate on this. The most obvious and clear example would be domestic abuse. Very rarely will you find a wife beaten by her husband and all of his friends. The situation is more often than not that a woman is attacked by a single man, usually in her house or in his house. They're somewhere that's comfortable. Perhaps you are dating a guy and you aren't ready to take the relationship to the next level. And when you say no, he gets violent. That happens far more often than being randomly attacked by people in the street. The reason why someone being attacked by people in the street makes it on the news is because it's newsworthy. It doesn't happen all the time. You will almost never see the headline, woman gets beat by her husband, because that unfortunately happens multiple times, hundreds of times, every single day. It is just a fact of our society that is quite troubling. Now, for the men who are thinking, well, I'm not being beaten by my spouse, and the chances are much lower of that happening, but a man is also far more likely to get in a 1 versus 1 fight than they are for 5 versus 1 or 2 versus 1. And that's because as a man, the people who are most likely to attack you are actually going to be your family members, such as your son or your uncle or your father, or your friends. So if you're a man and you have a son, the most likely person to attack you, statistically, is actually your son. And let me give you a scenario where that might happen. So your son's 16 years old, you find some drugs in his room, and you go to confront him about it, he gets angry and swings a punch at you. That is the far more likely scenario. That happens, once again, that happens hundreds of times every single day across the world. Or perhaps you're at a party with a bunch of friends and one of your friends gets too drunk and knows that you do martial arts and goes, you know what, I'm gonna take him on. I'm gonna test his grit. He ain't that bad. You aren't going to be fighting everyone in that room. It's going to be your drunk buddy that you're going to have to put to the ground and control. So the vast majority of self-defense situations that people are going to find themselves in is not going to be a multi-man scenario. It's going to be you versus one other person that you know well. You know their name, you know what they like to do, you have their contacts in your phone, and you're going to be somewhere that you're comfortable. Now, I know that can be very scary, and it makes you feel like, what, do I have to walk around like Mad-Eye Moody, all, ever vigilant and terrified of everything around me? No, not at all. But it means that you need to develop skills to handle both the multi-man scenarios and weapon-based scenarios that you will find in a street fight, but then you also need to understand how to control and pacify somebody in what is the vast majority of self-defense situations, which is a one-on-one fight in some place that you're comfortable. Now, of course, with a woman versus an abusive spouse, all bets are off and she should use the most nasty tools she can to get out of there. But if it's you versus your son, do you really want to eye gouge him, elbow him, headbutt him, pull his hair and bash his skull in? No, that's your son. Even if he's on drugs, even if he's attacking you, you need to pacify him peacefully. And the only skills that can do that are going to be the grappling skills and, of course, the talking skills, but we're assuming you can't talk your way out of it. So if you can take your son to the ground, put him in a basic pin, a basic hold, you have that conversation. Same thing with your drunk buddy. He's drunk. He's gotten out of hand. There's no reason for me to break his elbow. There's no reason for me to gouge out his eyes. There's no reason for me to eagle claw him and rip its throat out. No, what I want to do for my drunk buddy is I want to put him in a hold and control him. Of course, at the end of the day, if you don't know striking, throws, ground fighting, and weapons, you are not an expert in self-defense. And even if you know all those things, you still aren't an expert in such self-defense because you also have to understand and teach and be able to verbalize situational awareness, conflict de-escalation, and violence avoidance. You need all of those skills to be a self-defense expert. So should you know how to fight multi-man, or at least have a plan? Yes. You need to have a game plan and have practice dealing with multiple attackers. But is that a reason, because you may be attacked by multiple attackers, is that a reason not to develop your grappling skills so that you can pacify someone on a one-on-one fight very quickly, easily, and effectively? No, you shouldn't narrow yourself that much. The truth is, at the end of the day, you shouldn't intentionally be ignorant of any techniques. And that's effectively what you're doing. When you say, I don't think I should learn jiu-jitsu or judo because I'm going to be attacked by multiple people, that is like me saying, I don't need to learn basic division because I don't think I'm going to need it, basically is what you're saying. There's certain skills that are important. What you should do if you're trying to understand self-defense, or even if you're a martial artist in general, is to learn as much as possible. Don't limit yourself. Learn as much as possible, and then find the things that work best for you in each one of these situations. And the only way to do that is to have an open mind and study as much as you possibly can. So what are your guys' thoughts on this concept? Am I way off, or is it that most people have too narrow of a view of self-defense? I would love to hear your comments down below. Also, we've recently opened up an opportunity to train with us via Zoom because of the whole pandemic thing. Many of my students are unable to train one-on-one with me, so I've been having Zoom classes with them, and it's been working pretty well. So now we're opening that up to the public. For anybody who'd be interested in taking part in that, just contact me and we can get things started, and maybe you can even train with us online. I just would really like you to have a punching bag. So if you have a punching bag, that's going to make life a lot easier. Also, if you live in the Indianapolis area, of course, be sure to come and train with us in person if you can do that, because, there's nothing better than that hands-on training. Finally, of course, you've made it to the end of the video. Here you are sitting here being like, man, I hate this guy, or I love this guy, whatever it might be. You clearly enjoyed the video. Please subscribe, and please hit that thumbs up button and share it with your friends. We're a very small channel right now, and you're the only one who can help us grow. So until next time, everybody, I'm Michael Valenti with the School of Self-Defense. Fight on.